Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about quadratic equations. I want to show us how to enter them in our calculator and to come up with our quadratic function or our quadratic equation. And then at my very last example, I want to tie it into some questions that can be asked. So first of all, this is for those that have a TI-83 plus or a TI-84 plus. Some of us that have got our Casio calculators, you're probably going to have to YouTube that. I'm not too familiar with it. But these are basically those that are using the TI-83, TI-84s. Now, I'm going to give us a couple of steps. Now, those that have seen this with linear equations or linear regressions as well as exponential, this is the same steps. You go stat, and then you'll see edit. And then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to define your L1 and L2s. Now remember, our L1 is always our x values. Our L2 are always our y values. So once we plug those in, then we go to stat and calculate. In this case, it is option number 5. It's called Quad REG. Stands for Quadratic Regression. Now, once you enter that in, it will shoot out or spit out our A, B, and C. And our A, B, and C. So at any point, please pause this just to catch up and to do these over and over on your calculators. But on your A, it should be 1, B6, C5. So what this means is our quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c. So all we're doing is we're plugging in our 1, which would just make that x squared, our 6 in front of the x, and our 5 for c. This right here is what we're looking for. Now, this one, we can check this one. This does check out perfectly. This goes back to understanding how to factor. So factors of 5, 1, and 5. Since 5 is positive and 6 is positive, that means x plus 1, x plus 5, and we're going to set that equal to 0. So what in our parentheses do we need to give us 0? That'd be a -1. And -5 for the second one. Look at our points, -1, -5. That's how we know we've done this correctly. Now this is a special one because this can actually factor perfectly. So let's take a look at the next one. Suppose I give you a table like this. So what I'm going to do, some of us are going ahead and start doing those steps, but I'm going to rewrite these steps again. Stat, edit, we're going to put our L1 values, L2. Like I said, L1 are x values, L2 are y values. Then I want to go to stat, calculate, calc, option number 5, which is quad regression. When I have this, I have A, B, and C. I've got 1 for A, -2 for B, and -8 for C. So the correct format we want to use is, since A is 1, you can say x squared. My B is -2, and then it'll be x, and then -8 for C. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can factor this just to see if this works out. So I'm going to say x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. So then I'm going to factor out my 8, which is 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Since my 8 is negative, that means 1's going to be positive, 1's going to be negative. So if one's positive or negative, that means we need to take the difference of them. So I'm going to say negative 4, so minus 4 and a plus 2. So what in parentheses do I need to get in the first one to get a 0? X has to be negative 2. Y has to be a positive 4. If I look here on my table, I'll star or put an asterisk. Those are my x-intercepts. So in the previous lesson I did about graphing quadratics, these would be the points that they would, if you had to graph it, would hit the x-intercepts. Now finally, this is going to be looking familiar with our last lesson as well. So on this one, and as you all are looking at this, I'm going to still rewrite these steps. So stat, edit, my L1 and L2 values. Stat, calculate, option 5, which is the quad regression. Should spit you out some A, B's, and C's. So in this case, A is 1. B is 2. I got 3.9. So I'm going to just round that to 2.4. And then I've got negative 2.97. And I want to round that to negative 3. So since A is, not all the time A is 1, but in this case it is, it's going to be x squared. My 2.4 is positive, so plus 2.4x. And my C, my C is also my y-intercept. That's my initial value, which is a minus 3. So what happens if I ask you to, first of all, find what f of 3 is from this table? Well, what you have to do is you have to plug this in. Our original equation. Now my parentheses are where my x value is. That's where that 3 comes into play. So if I take 3 squared plus 2.4 times 3 minus 3, the answer I'm looking at should be 13.2. So I could ask you to plug in values. Also, I could ask you, okay, find the vertex and tell me if it's a minimum or maximum value. Well, first of all, just looking at our equation, we had, let me put over here, my A value was 1, my B is what we rounded to 2.4, and my C is negative 3. So first of all, since A is positive, if A is positive, it's going to go upward. So if it goes upward, our vertex is a minimum. And we learned this from our lesson on graphing quadratics. Now, what is the vertex? Well, this is where this x equals minus b over 2a comes into play, because now I'm going to say minus 2.4 over 2 times 1. And then when I do this, this gives me my negative 1.2. So that's my x value for my vertex. Now I want to put my y value in. So to find my y value, all I'm doing is I'm putting my negative 1.2 back into my original equation that I found from the table. And when I have this, this should be a negative 4.4. So my coordinate would be negative 1.2, negative 4.4. That's my vertex. If I look at my table, this right here, and I'm going to put a little asterisk by it, that's my vertex. That was actually in my table. Not all of the tables will have the vertex. In this one, it does. Now, finally, I can ask you like a word problem. A ball was hit, and after t seconds, here's the equation, negative 12t squared plus 15t plus 2. So I could ask you, okay, what was the height of the ball when it was hit? It should be a hit. When hit. Well, that comes from our initial value is always our c value. It would be 2. Okay? How many seconds does it reach its maximum? Well, anytime you see maximum or minimum, think of vertex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my vertex formula minus b over 2a. Now my b is going to be my 15. So I'm going to put minus 15 over 2 times, okay, this right here, the negative 12 is my a. So I've got negative 15 over my 2 times negative 12. So this will give you how many seconds is it going to reach. So if I put negative 15 divided by negative 24, .625 or 0.63. My maximum height, you just put this into our original equation. So I'm going to say, so this is when it reaches. So the vertex right here, this is my x value. So this right here is my, where it reaches it, the maximum. The height is going to be, you'd put the 0.63 in to our original equation. And this is going to give you what the maximum height is. So I'm going to give you all a few seconds to plug this in your calculator. So what I come out to get is roughly 6.7. So it takes 6.7. And maybe it's seconds. I'm sorry, maximum height. Not seconds, I'm sorry. Might be feet. This 0.63, that's what I was meaning to say, could be seconds. Okay, thank you for listening to Quadratic Equations.